Have we done it? Yes, I think we have. You can see those green dots. So, here we are again. I'm going to get to the campaign diary stuff, but last time where I buried the thing in my title, I'm going to do it up front instead. Well, for those that don't know, there's a famous green text story. It's D&D. I think it's supposed to be a game of 3.5. I don't know. Called Tucker's Kobolds. And the story is basically about how an overly arrogant D&D party of like 12th level characters all died to a bunch of little kobolds because they were overly arrogant about their abilities and they were dumb, and the kobolds were smart and they used traps. And I have come to not like this story and also distrust it. I don't like it and I distrust it, and I will tackle those in reverse order. Firstly, I am skeptical of the story because I think that people really like the idea of a story where the little guy gets the big guys because they're overly confident. And yeah, that is a good story. But also, I think the GM posting that story maybe was in love with that idea. Sometimes GMs fall in love with a specific idea or moment, and then they try to rig the game to make it work. Like part of the story that my friend takes issue with, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds dumb, is the party that gets totally killed by kobolds has a wizard, has a 12th level wizard, doesn't teleport because the place is in an anti-magic zone. Well, wouldn't you be able to feel that? Don't you think anti-magic would kind of register a little bit? What happened the first time that wizard tried to cast a spell at all? I don't know. That seems kind of suspicious to me. Another thing that seems suspicious to me, which will dovetail into the second prong of what I'm talking about and a larger theme I'm going to talk about, is that Dungeons and Dragons, especially modern Dungeons and Dragons, I'm going to say like from 3rd edition onward, when you get stronger in such a way that certain old tricks and tactics don't work on you anymore. That might even be a problem that D&D has had like forever, because there's the famous Tomb of Horrors dungeon that Gary Gygax made because he was tired of his players being so cocky and killing everything, and so he made a dungeon to kill them. Well, like, why do you have to do that, man? But that's, whatever. And so this story about how a party of level 12 adventurers were killed by a bunch of kobolds, yeah, that sounds funny. I'm very suspicious that like worked, especially since I think it's from 3rd edition and like none of these characters had damage reduction. None of these characters had other like traits and abilities that like foiled traps. I don't know. In Dungeons and Dragons, especially modern Dungeons and Dragons, it works kind of like, in my opinion, the anime Hunter x Hunter. Yes, tricks, tactics, those things can be very valuable, but you need to be within a certain power level for them to matter at all. You need the strength to actually pull the trick off in the first place. You cannot, if you confront Vecna or Takesis, you cannot defeat them by just being 3 goblins in a trench coat. That's just not how it works. It's not how power works. Dungeons and Dragons is not like Game of Thrones or some other gritty place where, all it takes is a knife to the neck when you're not paying attention. It's just not built that way. It's just not. And while I think it's reasonable to say if you get shoved into lava, you're dead. Like, I think that's fine. I don't think that violates what I've talked about. I absolutely 100% believe that it's dumb. Hello, Potato Kingo. Nice to see you today. I don't think that that holds all across the board. And I don't think it should. If you get to be higher level and you get stronger, certain enemies should become beneath you naturally. And if you're looking for a game where that's never true and you're always in danger and any ground you gain, any power you gain is never ever putting you above any other kind of threat, then I don't think D&D is the place to do it. So I think the Tucker's Kobold story, which is what I'm talking about right now, I am suspicious of it. Level 12 characters wiped out by a bunch of kobolds who just thought smart and the players were dumb. I'm really skeptical that happened. I think it's much more likely that the GM was just kind of sneaky with some details and like didn't tell them everything and then went and said, oh, my players were so dumb. Instead of, well, I just kind of fudged things a little bit so the players didn't catch on until it was like too late. I mean, seriously, have you ever tried to trick any D&D party? For as much as we meme about D&D players being very dumb, like, I don't know, maybe it's just my experience, but you try to trick characters, they're like almost on watch for stuff like that. So I don't like the story. And I also think it's dumb because while it's a fun story hearing the underdogs beating the powerful, overconfident party, at the same time, I think it goes against not just how D&D works, but I also think that it's kind of ass. Like the idea that you can gain power and you can gain experience and that doesn't buy you any assurances. Again, if we're playing in like a more gritty, down to earth like kind of thing that's not D&D, sure, but like not here, man. Especially not, I assume. I think the story is like from a third edition game, which is I think especially bad, though I guess fifth edition would be the worst. Just fucking try doing anything like that in fifth edition and saying, no, the players totally fell for it. It's no good. I talk about this because I've also been thinking about high level play or higher level play, which is something else that other people talk about and are like, oh man, it's totally terrible. D&D falls apart after like level 10 or whatever. And while I scrunch my nose at that declaration, I do think it is fair to say that the people making the game probably did not design for it to be fun at all of those levels. And I do think that higher level D&D is more difficult to design or do. I'm mainly thinking about this because of my game shop game. They are exploring this big desert dungeon. They wanted to continue playing their characters that they had like in the campaign that we just finished, and they're only going to get higher. They finished at level 9, I think, or level 8? I think they're somewhere around level 9 or 10 now, and we're going to be playing for a while if we keep doing it, so they're only going to get higher. And I'm trying to think about high level play because I think it's dumb to not do. I don't want to fall into a trap that I think people fall into with high level play where they just recycle the old low level stuff, but they staple class levels onto the monsters and they go, there, that's good enough. It's like, I don't think it is, man. I have blathered before online about how I think one of the big problems with running higher level games is we don't have pop culture representations of what high level play would look like. If you want to picture what D&D looks like in general, you can easily go to The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. There are trolls and goblins and orcs and maybe there's a dragon at the end. And that works fine for low to mid level. But then, if you want to go beyond that, what do you do? What do you picture? if you want the end boss of your D&D game to be a dragon, then that campaign better end at like 10th level because dragons cannot hold their weight when you go upwards, even if they get really strong. I was once in a game where the dude was like, "We're just gonna make level 20 characters." The dude is great. The game was fun. I hate always going into my mind of like, this is an example of how it's lame to do this one thing, even though he did stuff great. I do not want to disparage him at all, but like, we were still fighting goblins and shit. But like, they just had a bunch of levels and class abilities stapled to them. And while the game was fun and that guy's cool, I think that's bogus. And I think that's a trap that's pretty easy to fall into because that's what you think of when you think of fantasy and of Dungeons and Dragons. You think of trolls and orcs and goblins. And so you go to those same things when the players are high level. And then the players are like, no, man, we're level 10. We wipe out like 3 goblins in one swing if you let us. What do you. No. And then you go, well, what if I just make them stronger goblins? I don't know. And it's tough. It's tough. I'm thinking to myself right now, for the reasons that I just described, what is high level play? And I mean, I've heard one common answer before, but it's not very helpful, I think. Because one answer is, well, when you get to higher levels, you do domain play where you get your own kingdom or territory and you have to deal with politics and stuff. You take the players to a challenge arena that they can't get through just by fighting really hard. And while that's not a bad answer, I feel it is a very unhelpful answer because most people probably don't want to play a game that goes to that. Like if you're playing in a campaign that is intended to land in that area, then I think that's probably fine. But if you just have a bunch of people who are like, okay, we're level like 9 or 10, but we still want to keep going, they probably still want to keep going with their characters. So, okay, that's that first one, not a bad answer, but it's a specific answer that doesn't work. It's not very adaptable. Another answer that I think is a bad one is just bigger monsters, more hit points, more damage. Maybe that works on some people. I bet it does. But as far as like me, I think that sounds boring. I don't want to get into big battles that just have I don't want to be playing an MMO in D&D. I don't want to be fighting things that have big bags of hit points because well you're level 10 now so they have to. Like that's just gross to me. So that's no good. I think it might be kind of I think it could be okay sometimes. Like I have a sketch from like one of my drawing challenges where I was trying to come up with stuff that was like higher level because it was farther into the dungeon. You make a dungeon room a day and then you do it for a whole year. And towards the end, I was trying to make up things that I was thinking about, like what are high level challenges that I can like sketch out. And I remember I sketched out one that was like a hallway with 6 golems, 6 iron golems. Is this high level play? And it's stuck in my mind partially because I think that's a funny question to ask. I think that absurd challenges that are really meaty might be kind of fun, but I don't think it's like a complete answer. I don't think the overall answer is be an MMO, give everything more hit points, because, like, again, that's boring. So, what else can you do? And the most recent session of my game shop game gave me, I think, a little bit more insight to what I could do because last Saturday the enough people were there that we continued and there was this big fight that they were going towards. They're on this dungeon level where these dudes who are basically the Magi from The Mummy, like the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie, are basically fighting against them, trying to stop them from getting farther in the tomb. And the players are going, "Well, no, we want to be here, so we're just gonna keep going." One of the barbarian players even keeps shaking his head. Is like, "You could have surrendered. You could have surrendered," which it gives me feelings. But players players need to be able to have feelings and not have the GM immediately jump on them and correct them. So that's fine. I wince internally when he shakes his head and says that, but like that's okay. They've already cut through a big portion of the dungeon, and so now the remaining guards on this level have all formed up in this big room, and they're in this big formation. And I have like a bunch of notes about how these people are going to switch out with these people and like throw like flash, like alchemist fire from a distance. And then these dudes are going to be shooting behind these dudes for cover, and so on and so forth. And the players, uh, last time, absolutely rocked this formation. The barbarian has these boots that he just got that lets him fly, and he has had, like, from the end of the last like bit of campaign that we had, like this thunder hammer. And this session, the enemies made their initial moves, throwing alchemist fire from behind their arrangements and slashing and firing their ranged stuff, and they were doing their formation tactics, and the players really ripped into them. The session even ended with the barbarian player throwing his thunder hammer and stunning literally everyone in the room. Just a wave of stun. And before that, the monk player like ran all the way around on the wall behind their formation, like towards the very back. He just penetrated it by just wall running and using his feline agility, which is not, I think that's something Tabaxi get like towards the beginning. I don't think it's a high level ability, but whatever. Like running all the way back. And of course, the person who is in the party who's like a dragon rider and they have their own dragon has already been strong before this, but he's in there and he flies over them. They don't have the ability to stop someone from doing that, and he's already doing his own damage with his dragon's psychic flay attack because it's an emerald dragon. It's got this powerful psionic like a blast that is a bonus action because I didn't look at it before I handed it out, and I'm stubborn, so I'm leaving it. But there was a point during the players totally rocking this group of like 20 dudes who are not pushovers, by the way, but they are not very strong compared to where the players are right now. In fact, one of the complaints I have about my current level of dungeon is I really think that it's better for a lower level party, and I think it's a little too mundane. But there was a point while the players were absolutely rocking this formation of formidable warriors that made me think maybe this is part of what high level play is. Maybe not all the time, but maybe part of it is the players rocking challenges that would have been incredibly difficult when they were lower level. Again, I don't think it's the whole piece, but it's a piece that I hadn't considered. Not throwing enemies that are pushovers exactly, but enemies that are elite and, you know, they have some bite to them, they have some teeth. They're not rocking through a horde of goblins, but they are rocking a big group that like has no ability to stop them from flying around, and who all got stunned, and who all they have enough hit points that they're not pushovers, but at the same time, not so many hit points that like it's a brick wall. And so maybe that's part of high level play, right? Having more instances where the players are dealing with challenges that are simply a little tough instead, or a little stiff instead of insurmountable, when at the earlier levels it would have been a serious big deal. And doing so not just through their damage and their hit points, but also their tools that they possess. And like maybe that's part of high level play. Originally, I was thinking maybe high level play has more to do with the players have unique tools, so it's okay to hit them with nastier effects. Like maybe it's more okay to petrify people or whatever when you're level 8 or 9 and you have plentiful access to stuff that could deal with that. Or maybe it's more okay to kill characters because you've had access to Revivify for quite some time, and you've by level 8 or 9, you probably have access to other things that protect you. That was what I was originally thinking, and I think that's probably part of it. But I didn't particularly like that answer because it's easy for players to just not prepare stuff. And then, like, I don't know, it just sounds kind of annoying if you run a game and you're like, well, you have to have the right stuff prepared or else it's going to be annoying to move forward. I don't know. I don't think that's the vibe. I think that's something I'm definitely going to kind of do that sometimes. But when thinking about what high level play is, there are many stabs to take, and I've taken a few of them. And there's stuff that I outright reject, and there's stuff that I think, yeah, maybe. So that'll just be something that I continue to think about uh, as my own Game Shop game progresses. Though I am going to next level try to up the ante at least a little as far as like the enemy type. In fact, regardless of the stuff that I said, I do think that the level, this is not related to high level play thoughts. This is just me talking now. But I do think the level that they're currently on was a bit of a failure for a few reasons. And one of them was definitely I did not execute on their central premise. One big thing, there are two big things that all these enemies had. They train together and they work well together, so they all have pack tactics basically. They all get advantage when they have fellows near them, which I think I forgot sometimes because it seems like they never hit any of the players, or they do occasionally, but like not enough for this thing to come up. Or the second thing to come up. The second thing they had going for them is when they see their fellows get killed, I add 1 dice of damage to all of their attacks because they're spurred on by their comrades getting killed. But the thing is that seems to have not come up like at all. So it's going to be really weird when they meet the final guy, and the final guy is rolling like 15 D6 or D8, and they're like, "What?" I think they'll roll with it. I've alluded to the fact that they get stronger when they see their comrades die, but like nobody's really been hit with attacks that have been powered up, or if they have, it hasn't been super noticeable. I feel. And I think maybe part of that is their attack bonuses are not that high. I made this dungeon level thinking, okay, they're going to be fighting a lot of dudes, so their attack bonuses won't be that high, but they all have pack tactics, which I read an article once saying that having advantage is basically equivalent to getting like a +3 on your attack on average. So I was like, okay, sure. I'm not a math guy, but I was like, sure, I'll believe that. Um, and so I thought, well, their attack bonuses won't be that high, but at the same time, they'll also be getting advantage all the time, so that'll probably balance out. And it seems to have maybe not, or maybe I was a little too conservative with their attack bonuses. I don't know. It seems like they rarely, if ever, hit the players, which is weird because they get plenty of turns. It's not like I'm throwing with 2 enemies at a time and the players just wipe them out. Though the players do have pretty good initiative usually, so maybe that factors into it a little. I don't know. But I think that the guy's big thing of when our comrades go down, we are driven by that to be stronger. I don't think I've done a good job of making that evident. I think that this kind of level, I knew it was going to be an uphill battle, but I think this kind of level maybe isn't well suited for higher level characters apart from the bit that I talked about that seems pretty cool. And like the players are having fun and stuff. I don't think it's bad, but I don't know. There's also some stuff that I wanted to be true on this floor that like wasn't, that I also want to change. For instance, this level, these guardian people, they're really rigid in their oath and their duties. So it's going to be particularly difficult to try to talk them down from anything. Even more so if you've already like killed some of their guys or an alarm has been raised and they're like kind of braced for the fact they're going to run into intruders. The start of the level is like a circular room with dudes in it, and my idea was, oh, when you bust in there, you have to try to stop someone from raising the alarm, and if you don't, then the rest of the place gets alerted room by room. The players happen to engage, like talk through the door rather than like burst in, which gave them plenty of time to like pull an alarm and, you know, alert the rest of the floor and the rest of the dudes. But I am thinking that even with that, I was a little lazy in the design of the level. The level has like two, it splits into two, and then one straight shot is the warriors that I'm describing with little offshoots that are their barracks and things like that. Barracks, armory, whatever. And then the other way is a straight shot that has rooms off of it, but it's like these snake assassins that are inspired by the Yu-Gi-Oh card, embodiment of Apophis, because that's just how I do. And I think at least with the Warriors, it needed to be more of like an actual, like typical level, giving the players a chance to try to sneak and try to avoid. Because I'm thinking this level, basically, if you beef the first room, if you don't prevent the alarm in the first room, it's going to be basically impossible to like sneak your way past anybody or do anything other than just fight this uphill battle of dudes and more dudes and more dudes. And it would be cool if we could allow a little bit of that. Like initially I thought, well, maybe that's okay, but I think the curve is too steep actually. Um, and if and when I revise this, I'm going to fix that, is basically the end of that. So I think that this floor was designed a little lazily, and now I'm paying for it. The players are having a fun time. This is only something that a GM could do. Oh man, I think this thing is terrible. No, the players are having fun and liking it. But oh no, I really think that the design was off, and you should allow some stuff for the design. That's something that only a GM could do. They're having fun, but I think this floor is a bit of a failure. It's a bit stinky. It's a bit didn't work the way I wanted, and I will redesign it later, which is important because I have an animated series called Treasure Takers, and it's about dungeon crawling. The dungeons are real, and part of what I aim to do with my friends is I try to playtest those dungeons because I want to release PDFs, free PDFs of the dungeons that the Treasure Takers characters go through for people to see and read and maybe even play through. Who knows? And I totally intend to have a big, brutal pyramid dungeon crawl at some point in Treasure Takers. And so, right now is actually important on that level. Like, ever since I saw someone in a YouTube video talk about keeping their dungeons so they could use them again if they needed something at short notice, I have always like kind of kept my dungeon notes and then squirreled them away and then pulled them out again if I could reuse them or whatever. But on top of that, there are certain times where I definitely want to go back. I definitely want to revise the dungeon, how it works, or what have you, because I'm going to use it for Treasure Takers and I'm getting good feedback and about this, that, and the other thing. Though, a little bit of extra information about the current dungeon level that I'm talking about. I already kind of changed it, and so it wasn't necessarily like all laziness on my part. You see, I had originally conceived of this level being mostly those stern warrior Magi type dudes, and I had envisioned a level where it's very emotionally fraught because after the initial like resistance of the warriors, the players would be going through like an underground living space where these people would desperately be trying to defend themselves against or kill, if the players weren't that strong, the invaders, the invading adventurers. But I decided to not do that for my 5th edition game because, one, and this keeps happening by the way, I keep on thinking of things that are like emotional and like maybe a little tough on the roleplay angle, and then rolling it back because I originally told the players this will be hack and slash roleplay light. And then I'm over here like, and then the Jackal Warrior tells his comrades that he's going to hold them off and they don't have to worry about him anymore. And then one of the retreating veterans takes him and kisses him and says, I was never worried about you. And then I go, wait, hold on. You said roleplay light, hack and slash. Let's reel it back. Or like, the boss, the final living tomb keeper, he thinks about these fond memories of the generation that came after him and how they'll never get to grow old, and this is what drives him forward. And I have to tell myself, nope, hold on. You said role play light, hack and slash, reel it back. Like I just do this all the time. But originally, dual bladed scorpion. Well, that escalated. You're correct. Also, welcome, dual bladed scorpion. I'm talking about the current dungeon level that I am running for my local game shop, and about how I told them that it would be hack and slash light role play, but I am constantly having these ideas that are deeper and emotional, and I'm like, nope, hold on. I gotta tell myself, you gotta roll it back. You set the expectation. Do not spring something beyond the expectation on them. That would be rude. And also, an escalation that maybe would not be cool. Um, I originally conceived of this level as like you're fighting through it, but it's also this home and this living space of these warriors who are like the Magi from the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie. And so you're not just fighting like hardened warriors, but you're also fighting their families. And I originally decided I wasn't going to do that with my game shop game because I had said that this is supposed to be roleplay light, hack and slash, and also I would personally feel bad, which is the other side of the coin. Sometimes I come up with ideas that I'm like, yeah, and then the time comes and I have to turn to myself and go, well, is this a yeah? And I gotta go, no, actually. Even with modifying this level so they're just fighting through the warriors and they're not going through like the warriors' homes and stuff, I still feel a little bad for my enemies. Especially as the barbarian keeps on shaking his head and going, you could have surrendered. You could have surrendered, as he brutally murders them. And as I said before, it's important for players to be able to like do things and react to things without the GM immediately like jumping in to explain. So like, I don't say anything, but I can't help but look and I'm like, yeah, I guess that's true. They're fighting this big group of them in kind of a last stand situation because they're at the end of the warrior corridor. And then after that, they're going to fight the final guy who is who is basically the first tomb keeper, the first one of these warriors who's all emaciated and in his own sarcophagus that guards the stairs to level 3, I think it's going to be. And I guess if one of my players finds this before next Saturday, like, don't listen to any of this, please. Thanks. I doubt they will, but like, And he is basically going to become powered up in equal proportion to the people that were slain, which at this point is going to be all of them, which I think is fun. But like I talked about earlier, I don't think I've done a good job of telegraphing that aspect of them because they all become stronger when they see their allies go down, which adds 1 die to their damage rolls. per person that they see go down in that combat. And then this guy is going to have dice. Dual-bladed Scorpion says, Barbarian, you could have surrendered, but you had to go and turn yourself into mincemeat. Yes, actually. 100% Dual-bladed Scorpion. 100%. That's basically it. Like last session, he had gotten one of the fights before the big fight was this clan of warriors also has a division of them that have been infected by jackal-wares, and they kind of weaponize that curse against their enemies. Which, side note, I complained before online about how, it's kind of a bummer that the fact that if you're a lycanthrope and you're immune to attacks that aren't magical or silvered, it just basically doesn't come up in D&D because magic is so prevalent. It came up like 4 times last session. So it just goes to show sometimes I'm wrong. But anyway, the fight before the big entrenched fight had like rabid, like members of their sect that had turned rabid. And non-rabid people were herding them towards the players and then using these bolas to throw and then tie players to individual rabid jackal-wares who would bite them, and they'd be restrained. And it's kind of like a thing. There is a point where the barbarian literally tore one of them in half and then just had like 2 halves of a jackal-ware like hanging to either side of him as he was doing things, and he literally like went out of his way to tie more people parts to him. I called it his barbarian bling, and he was like, yeah. and so he's like running around wearing like halves of warrior on him deliberately. Very barbarian. He's super plain to the hilt. Very good, very quality barbarian shenanigans. He's absolutely 110%. You could have surrendered, but you had to go and turn yourself into mincemeat. What are you gonna do? Man, it's a bummer because I kind of like these guys. I can only imagine how much worse it would have been if I went the emotional route, but like didn't forewarn people. So they're gonna get through that this coming Saturday. And then they're gonna run to the last dude who's going to get 1 extra damage die for every member of the sect the players have killed, which is going to be all of them. So it actually would have been maybe too silly if I'd done it straight damage. So I think what I have in my notes is actually I split how many people had been killed by, I think it's like 37, or it's going to be 37 unless they just decide to stop killing people. Which there is a paladin who like would like to not do that. I feel a little bad as well because there's a new person who's joined us. He's playing a paladin, and he wants to try to talk people down, but there are like 2 different people who keep on telling him, "No, man, they're not gonna back down." And like at this point, that's pretty true. And I do my best to kind of smooth it a little bit as a GM because I don't want him to be discouraged, like putting forward ideas, but at the same time, in this particular instance, yeah, I don't know how you would talk any of these guys down. But anyway, they're going to get to the last Tomb Keeper, the first Tomb Keeper, who is going to... I split how many people died and gave him like more hit dice and more damage dice and attack bonus based on them. I don't know if magic cards that say your attack is X work this way, but maybe they do. That's what I think of whenever I do this. So this guy's basically going to have, and I divided it in 3, so he's going to have, I think, plus 12 on his attack rolls, and he's going to do like 12 d8 of damage per swing, and I think he's got like 80 hit points, which is not a lot, but it might be a little more. But he's got enough hit points that him swinging and doing a tremendous amount of damage with each shot is going to be troublesome, which is part of what I hope. That's my design for the fight that I hope works out. Hey, this guy does like 12d8 every time he swings, and he's gonna get like 3 turns because he's super fast and swift, but he doesn't have a ton of hit points. So if you can like deal with him, if you can deal with him in the immediate, you'll be able to get through. Will they? I don't know. But maybe, probably. And then he's also got some other stuff that he is going to do as well. I am a fan of the Matt Colville MCDM stuff, so he has like villain actions that go on different rounds, which are basically like souped up, souped up legendary actions. And I thought it'd be really cool if maybe the souls of all the people that of all the warriors that have been killed could like roam around the battlefield kind of like spirit guardians. They might not do damage. I'm gonna make my decision this week, but I'm thinking either they do damage like spirit guardians, and then the last thing that happens in the fight is everybody has to make a save against these creatures, these spirits trying to drag you down to hell, down to the underworld, is kind of like this big death curse, because I think that might be kind of fun. Or the version that I might do instead is they don't do any damage, but they do reduce your speed to half, and then I have people make saves every like round, basically. Optimally, this fight would go for like 3 rounds, I think. And then maybe they make a save against being dragged into their soul, dragged from their body via these spiteful spirits. And maybe the save is not that hard, though they're like level 9 or 10, so not that hard. I think would be like DC 17 for them. And then maybe round 2, when they're damaged, I would have them do it but at disadvantage. And then maybe the last round, when they defeat the guy and all the spirits cry out for vengeance, try to drag everybody down, one last save that's like a harder DC. So they, they're like, uh-oh, I'm gonna get pulled, and then the last one is like big pull attempt, which I might do. So I will think about that over the course of this week, in addition to the other stuff. Just looking at my phone, nothing important. So I'm just going to be thinking during the week about that. And, I'll make my decision. Dual Bladed Scorpion says, thematically speaking, it would make sense if the souls of those fallen enemies doing some damage once they're summoned. I agree. So maybe I will. Maybe they will do damage in addition to the chance to pull the player's souls to the underworld, whatever that might entail. I should also note, I keep track of time, and I, don't let people long rest at the beginning or at the end of every session. So this is sure to be pretty brutal either way I go. But that is something that I also take into consideration. The fact that in the rules, you're only really allowed to long rest like once a day, and because I track time, I actually keep to that. So any fights that are damaging, and I'm okay with fights being like damaging and brutal. The players get to decide whether or not they want to engage with stuff. I'm totally down on that level. But I do try to bear in mind how much damage and how damaging combats are, even boss combats, given that they're going to have to hang out, afterwards. And the players know that too. The players they saw the big formation of dudes ahead and actually like had a bit of a talk about like, what do we do actually? They just healed up and plowed through, but it's on their minds too. I'm not super worried, but I do think about that when I'm like, how much damage should things do, or how much damage would be appropriate. Because like I think if everything's perfectly balanced, then you have a very boring game. But I definitely want to hit appropriate, as in, does this feel right? Does this feel correct? A little bit of insight into how I scale things. You know, is it appropriate and does it feel right? To me, is way more important than is it balanced. Balance isn't something you should ignore completely, but I do think there are people who are too scared of balance and they really want to they think that if your game is unbalanced, that's just going to slide off a ravine and there's nothing you can do when like I think games in general are not that fragile. And I also think that it's pretty easy, like the way some people talk about D&D, you would think that a dungeon master is some kind of mysterious fae that if you like trick them into saying yes to a character option or a spell working a certain way, then they can't take it back no matter what. Because I tricked you, you did not ask me exactly what the bonuses were for this homebrew class, and now you have to let me play it. And like that's not how it works, man. Like you can say no or adjust things after people do them. Like I don't know. I could very easily make a YouTube short that is about the feelings that I just talked about. The weird idea. Uh, Double Wave Scorpion says comrades teeth. Comrades teeth. Comrades teeth. Comrades teeth. I am uncertain if that is part of like a thought or I don't know. But I'm here for it. It's a little silly, I think, the way people worry about balance. I was actually in a Discord, like a big Discord had some designer from Hearthstone and some other games, and I wanted to try to seem smart when they were like, "Oh, we've got some time before the presentation starts. Do you like have any questions?" And I thought a smart idea of a question would be to ask, "So, what do you do about like how do you go about game balance when you're designing cards and things?" And the guy actually had a part of his presentation devoted to that, but he also at that moment gave like a short preview of that part of his presentation where he went on to say that it's better to worry about whether or not something is doing its job than it is to worry about game balance exactly. And he gave some examples of like if you basically it's if you have an option in a game or you have a card in a card game that's really really strong but it's difficult to play or it's very costly, that thing is doing its job. It's difficult to use, but the payoff is equivalent. In theory, the payoff is worth it. Likewise, if something is not very powerful, then it should be relatively easy to use, easy to play. And it's better to think about it in terms of that than is this broken? Is this not broken? And I thought those were wise words. And I agree. So often I look at stuff that's supposed to be strong in fifth edition, magic items basically, and I'm like, this kind of sucks. Is this all you're going to give me for something that's supposed to be big up? I don't like it. In fact, you want to talk about YouTube shorts I could make? I hate how easy it is to avoid being petrified in 5th edition. It takes you like failing 3 saves before you get fully petrified. You find a Medusa, you're worried about this Medusa because they're going to turn you stone. Don't worry. You get an initial save, and then if you fail that one, then you start turning to stone. You get another save, and then only if you fail a 3rd save do you get turned to stone. But if you make like at least one of those, you're probably going to be okay. Totally bogus. It really bothers me. Talk about robbing the evocative value of anything that can turn you to stone by making it too hard to do. I think if you get petrified, or if you run up against a Medusa or a Gorgon, and there's a problem, I think that you should get one save. You should get one save, and that's it. Maybe you get one save, and if you fail it, you turn to stone on your next turn, and you're turning to stone, so you get like one more action before you're fully turned to stone. If we really want to make a compromise on that. But like, no, man, one save. Let this be dangerous, and it's just up to the GM to telegraph that danger. That's my complaint there. So, the game was all right last Saturday. Sunday was supposed to be another one of the ninja layers, and I asked on my tab, which one do you think they'll do next? But then like several people like dropped out at the last minute, and so we ended up not doing it. So I'm afraid we're gonna have to wait until this Sunday to find out which ninja master the players choose between the Master of Fire, the Master of Blades, the Master of Poison, and the Master of Hands. If I remember correctly, people who voted were tied between Master of Hands and Master of Poison, maybe? I'd have to go look. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I sometimes make community posts, and recently I've been making community posts about this Mega Man style like ninja castle where you beat ninja masters and then take their weapons and then use those weapons to beat other ninja masters, which I am going to release as part of a bigger project for free. And so I've been making community posts asking which ninja master of the 5 do you think they're going to fight? And then after they picked their first one, I asked, which one of the remaining 4 do you think they're going to pick? The 5 ninja masters, by the way, I kind of said most of them, but I'll say them again, are the Master of Fire, the Master of Blades, the Master of Illusions, the Master of Hands, and the Master of Poison. And they all represent like archetypal ninja stuff. The first time I asked, who do you think they're going to pick? And the community, my fans, I assume, though it could have been random people that just saw it, but I doubt that, voted Master of Blades would be the first ninja master that they fought. And it turned out that wasn't true. They almost did. I think I made a community post like, you almost nailed it, but because they almost were. They were going to pick the Master of Blades, but then one person said, well, what if we just do other ninja masters? What if the Master of Illusions comes after us and then interferes with us going after the other ninja masters? We should deal with the Master of Illusions first. And so they were almost going to pick Blade, and they just zooped right away. And then they fought and defeated the Master of Illusions, which... this is why playtesting is good. I think I'm going to change, not much, I think, but I am going to change some stuff. Though the Master of Illusions worked pretty as designed, which was cool. I think mostly I'm going to make some changes to like the lair and the dungeons and stuff. Though there was one change I think I was going to make. I don't know. Fun fact, though. I'm making it for Shadowdark, which is the system that I use for Robin Goblin. That's why there are air quotes around, let's play D&D together. And for the Illusionary Ninja, I gave them shadow clones, basically, which I thought would work, or I decided would work, like mirror images. In D&D, there's a spell called Mirror Images, where you create 2 illusionary clones of yourself, and whenever someone attacks you, if on a roll of, I think, like 11 or higher, they hit one of the clones, and if it's less, then you hit another, or something like that. I Control F through the Shadowdark book to see if mirror images already existed in there, and it didn't. Or I didn't find it, was the spoilers to the story. I didn't find it, so I went ahead and I just made my own version, which is what I gave the illusionary ninja minions, though the Master of Illusions could also do this. Only to find that Shadow Dark does have mirror images in it, and it's stronger than what I came up with. Because the thing that I did, because Shadow Dark is like a lighter, deadlier version of 5th edition, basically, was, okay, they're going to create their shadow clones. And then players are going to attack, and every time they attack, I'm going to roll a d6. If it's a 4 through 6, they hit a clone. And if they only have 2 clones, I'll roll, and if it's like a 1 to 2, they hit a clone. And then once they're out of clones, then they're out of clones. Mirror images in Shadow Dark is just straight up, if you have clones, they hit a clone instead of you until you're out of clones. Which I like how it's a lot better, but it was kind of a surprise to me. That I was like, oh, the thing I came up with is actually weaker than what you did. Touche, Shadow Dark. Touche. I did end up, I think I talked about it a little bit last week because I was fresh off it. I do these streams that I don't advertise at all every Tuesday, 10:30 a.m. PST. I may also start streaming video games. I would like to, but we'll see. On Twitch, though. I have a Twitch that I barely use, and that I don't. There's actually a video of me over on Twitch trying to play Baldur's Gate 3 and it not running on my computer at all. As I say like a million times, I'm going to give it to the time the gameplay starts to see if this will actually work. And then it didn't. Spoilers. But back on track. I had been fresh off of them fighting the Master of Illusions in my last stream, and so I had talked about how, I don't know, I think I'm going to lower the hit points of the guy, and also I gave the guy substitution, and never see this. If you're any of my players, never watch this. I kind of felt like it was a bad idea for the guy, for the Master of Illusions to already have something that leaves behind an illusion of him and then he turns invisible. So he's already really difficult to find. And he has shadow clones. And to also give him substitution where like the players try to hit you and if they don't make a save, an intelligence save, you just hit a log, the ninja log thing. I felt like it was too much in the fight. And last stream when I was talking, one person who was in here was like, no, keep it. Keep it. Make his hit points even lower. I'm like, okay. Maybe. Dual-Bladed Scorpion says, you just reminded me of a D&D character I want to try out. He's a Yuan Ti rogue. Want to multi-class him into a Shadow Monk, so basically making him into the Shadow Ninja. Oh, and he's literally a walking colony of red viper snakes. Solid. That sounds like a solid character con. That, to me, also, Potato King Go says, but funny. Dual-Bladed Scorpion, I think that character concept actually sounds like a boss. Like, obviously, when you make it in D&D, it won't be. But if you describe that character to me as, like, the boss of, like, a level of something, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. That sounds pretty cool, actually. What game is that? So that's cool. I'm into it. The last... I wanted to tighten up the details on the ninja layers. So the last ninja layer I did writing for was the Master of Poison, and there are some snakes in that one. I recently redid that as well, or I made some changes to that as well. Because they had poison, and they still have poison because they're poison ninja. But originally I was really in love with the idea that, they're in this garden of paralytic, like, flowers, and they have paralytic poison. So their poison paralyzes you. And then if you're paralyzed and someone else hits you, they're going to get a critical hit on you. Pretty deadly, pretty dangerous, but I felt like it wasn't truly evocative of poison because poison hurts you. Poison debilitates, but it also damages. And I didn't have enough representation for that in the thing. So I went back and I didn't get rid of the paralysis, but I went back and I introduced damage as well. So we're gonna see. Since it's Shadow Dark and like hit points are lower and like that you don't have a million tools to get rid of stuff, I am apprehensive. But at the same time, I like how deadly Shadow Dark is. So, you know, it's not like the players don't know it's deadly. I had them make multiple characters, so worst case scenario, they switch out. We'll see how that goes whenever they choose that. Because, we didn't play, and so this coming Sunday, I will once again ask them, okay, you defeated the Master of Illusions, but who will you choose to fight next? I got a little bit of inside data in that one of my friends was talking about how at the session and then later, like when we were just hanging out together, I bet the Master of Fire does a bunch of damage, and I bet the Master of Blades also does a bunch of damage, but I bet the Master of Poison would be really annoying. Or rather, he was saying another friend of his was like, the Master of Poison is probably going to be super annoying and difficult, so we should probably leave him for like last. We'll see if they continue to hold to that. And then, they'll take on whatever Ninja Master. So this coming weekend, Saturday, Game Shop game, they're going to continue fighting the formation of sworn warriors in the desert tomb of Akhmet Set. And then afterwards, they're probably going to come into contact with the boss warrior, the first of the tomb keepers. And we'll get to see how that goes with them. And then Sunday, the people who I play online with, because most of them live in town, but some of them do not. We're playing with these people since like high school. They're like, I known them for longer. They will pick a ninja master to confront, and we'll see which one. I have them all prepared. Because I really wanted to do like the Mega Man style, you can pick whatever master. After I didn't have all of them ready, but after I committed to doing this and told them, and everybody was like, yeah, cool, I like really crunched to make sure that I had all of them ready for if they picked. So now, benefit of doing all that work up front, I get to kind of chill out as far as prepping goes because I like have all that. It's kind of nice. Dual Bladed Scorpion says, my strategy, it would be getting to the Poison Master first, then getting the rest of the other Elemental Masters. A cool strategy. I'm curious, Dual Bladed Scorpion. Would you do the Poison Master first because you think, hey, if it's going to be annoying, might as well get it out of the way? Or is there perhaps some other logic that you are using? And also, each one of these ninja masters has like their own weapon that people are going to take, Mega Man style. So in theory, if you think that one's going to be really strong, you could prioritize one that you think is the strongest. If you think their ninja weapon is going to be strong against the other ones. One of my friends even asked, are they going to have weaknesses to the different ones, like in Mega Man? And I said maybe, but I think the answer is going to be yes. One way or another, because not all of these do damage. But I'm thinking maybe if any of them have saves, maybe some of them will either deal extra damage or they'll have like disadvantage on saves against whatever. It's a cool time. Though I also feel a little self-conscious because Shadow Dark is best at like slower, more thoughtful, resource management heavy dungeon crawling, and I've basically made like a high octane rush down. Dual Bladed Scorpion has said a bit of both here. The annoying factor, the obvious, but the loot in poisons I could use factor, the obvious, but the loot in poisons I could use against some of the other elemental masters. Very true. Very true. And I won't spoil exactly how it works, but the weapon from the Master of Poison, I think, is going to be very useful for whoever decides to pick it up, should the players successfully beat him, because it could still be difficult. In fact, it was almost way more difficult because I had an idea that I liked, but I felt like it would be too over the top, which means eventually I'll make a director's cut. And if this were 5th edition, then I probably would have just went ahead and done it, if only because 5th edition is like higher power. But originally I thought it would be cool if in the domain, the Master of Poison lives in this big garden, and there's this constant stream of golden pollen that falls over the garden. And originally I thought it would be cool if every hour of gameplay all the characters had to make a constitution save, and if they failed, they would become paralyzed. And so you'd have to keep good pace, but you could also be getting paralyzed while you're going through it, unless you could not get hit by if you could somehow not get hit by the pollen. But how would you do that? I don't know. In fact, originally there was an earlier incarnation of the idea of a ninja castle has haunted me forever, and I'm continuing to chase the best sounding, like the true ninja castle. Dual Blade Scorpion, it says, make the Poison Master's main weapon be a fang blade, a dagger shaped like a snake's venomous tooth. That is a cool idea, Dual Blade Scorpion. There is a classic magic item that is like that I am a big fan of. But I already have something in mind. I don't think I'll change it, but that's a good idea. But anyway, I originally the idea of a ninja castle has haunted me for a really long time. Anybody who's like familiar with the Rob and Goblin series, what was the second adventure that we did, like right after the maze? I mean, people voted, but at the same time. So I'm still chasing the idea of a perfect ninja castle, including right now when I'm doing stuff with like the ninja masters and everything. And originally I conceived of the layer of the Master of Poison having that pollen that if you can't, originally I thought maybe it'd be like a puzzle. Like, hey, can you figure out how to get through here while not falling victim to the pollen? Otherwise you just can't, because your body gets too poisoned and then you seize up and die. But for the Shadow Dark thing, I was like, okay, I don't think I want to go that extreme, but I could have them make saves like every hour of game time, because Shadow Dark you play in real time, kind of. But ultimately decided to not do that and just make it like a time limit on the layer itself. Like, hey, there's this pollen falling and you're slowly becoming numb because you're exposed to it. If you do not finish this section, this Ninja Master layer before the end of the session, you're just going to seize up and die. Which I'm taking inspiration from an adaptation, a loose adaptation of Curse of Strahd that's done for like Shadow Dark, where if you don't complete it by the end of the session, everybody dies. And I thought that was interesting enough that I thought I would include it as like a fun little timer for the Master of Poison. And I also have a similar timer for the Master of Fire's lair. Don't tell anyone. Master of Fire is the first one I made, actually, of this recent incarnation. Should be fun. Should be cool. I'm thinking about talking about it, but I'm going to talk about them when the players do them, so I guess I won't at the moment. So we got some stuff ahead that should be cool. Anybody who's interested, I will be released. Like I said, I'll be releasing the Ninja Master stuff as one-shots that like interconnect, so they're not one-shots actually, in like a free PDF. I have an itch.io page that I have some stuff on. I'll put it there. I might make a short about it. I should. you know, should be cool. Um, I complained about Tucker's Kobolds. I talked about high level play, and I also talked about the campaign diary stuff. So we're getting towards the end of the stuff that I had that I wanted to talk about. Um, if I got any Robin Goblin fans in the audience that have burning questions about the series or even the last one that came out, this would be a good chance to get like an answer directly from the dude who's making it. I'm gonna have to count up the votes later tonight and work on the next part because a new Robin Goblin comes out tomorrow morning. It really sucks. The algorithm sucks. A little more often lately, I've been seeing people not on YouTube as much, though still also YouTube, but like also on TikTok who will like and vote on a video, but the video's like a little behind. Like they'll vote on the one that came out like Friday, and like it's Mondays is already out. I would feel a little bad going, hey, cool vote, but actually the newest one's out. I did that once on here, but like, kind of sucks. And I have at least one person who sees them and goes, oh, I actually didn't know until I came here and checked, even though I'm subscribed. It's like, that blows. YouTube should just show you what you've continued to watch. But alas, it is not so. It's a bummer. A couple new people subscribed. My email told me. That was cool. I always look when I see people subscribing and I'm like, ah, nice, cool. It's kind of wild getting subscribers at all because, I'm not I'm not exactly like a huge channel or anything. So it's cool when I see people who are like, I have subscribed. And it's cool as hell to see people pop into this stream, especially considering I don't advertise it like I should. I've been thinking about like saying something at the end of like Robin Goblin shorts where I'm like, oh, and I also stream at like 10:30 a.m. Tuesdays PST if you want to like chat or something. Thought about saying that in the things, and maybe I will eventually. Awesome. I saw someone like. That's great. I appreciate that. There's a little bit of stuff I could talk about with my series, my like animated series, Treasure Takers. Not sure how interesting go. I don't know if I can get this all animated within the time that I have to animate it. I think I went a little overboard. So if you see this clip and then it comes out and it's ass, then you could be all like, yeah, I was overboard. He was correct. I don't know. Like it's cool. I like it, but I don't know, it's tough. Animating is tough. Who would have thought? I've complained to people before about how I just have this weird desire to do things that are like difficult and don't make money. Because like it'd be one thing if I wanted to make you want to make content on the internet, okay, you could potentially make it's kind of difficult, but you could make money off of that. Oh, you want to make D&D content on the internet. There are a lot of people that do that. There are a lot of people that do that. Do you want to make jokes, funny jokes about how it's like to GM, or do you want to make like your own actual play? You want to make an animated series. Okay. Um Basically no one succeeds at that. Um like we have more success stories these days, but still not like a ton. It's still like, wow, there are like several people who are kind of succeeding, as opposed to this whole graveyard of people who are absolutely not. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, there's like literally only been arguably like 3 examples of people successfully doing that. But it could still work. So is your series about a bunch of wacky characters? No, they're all human. Well, okay, but that could still be funny, right? It's only kind of funny. It's only kind of funny sometimes. Well, maybe they have a crazy villain, right? Maybe they have a crazy, goofy villain that the villain is capitalism. Okay, that's in vogue. That's in vogue. We can work with this. You want it to be about dungeon crawling. I mean, okay, people like dungeons. That could work. You want it to be about like resource management heavy, like actual dungeon crawling with like a dash of Pawn Stars at the end. That could be fun. That could be fun. Like it just gets, if you go down to my idea, it gets narrower and narrower and narrower. I think that people will like it, and I've gotten positive reactions to the episodes that I have put up. But, you know, I could definitely be picking something easier. But I seem to just don't, I just seem to not like that. I'm not interested. Dual Bladed Scorpion has asked, "Oh, speaking of Robin the Goblin, once the series is done, any plans for a graphic novel adaptation of Robin the Goblin?" You know, it really warms my heart that you would ask that. I think that it's awesome that me randomly going, what if I took a Yu-Gi-Oh card and had it do dungeon stuff and people voted on it, has been as warmly received as it has been. Uh, I do not intend to do any kind of graphic novel adaptation of it. That sounds like it would be cool. I do not have any current plans to do that. I might introduce Robin Goblin into my animated series, though. I'm not 100% sold on the idea, but I might. I think it'd be kind of. I kind of like the idea. I kind of don't. I might. um, though that would be cool. Don't get me wrong. I could imagine a Robin Goblin comic series or graphic novel series being very cool, but I do not have plans to do that, at least as of this moment. I got some stickers though. I got some stickers I was selling for a little while, and now have just a bunch of stickers laying around. There's one absolute G fan who bought one like pretty quickly. They're cool. Like all my fans are cool, but I have Robin Goblin stickers. That's the point of the message. I have Robin Goblin stickers, by the way. I think the Etsy store listing has expired though. Not sure. I should clearly do like a little stream or something. Be like, who wants Robin Goblin stickers? Tell me, and I don't know, something. Okay. So I think I don't want to ramble on forever. So I think I got it. I think I'm good for now, unless there's anything else that like comes up real quick. So I think that's going to do it for me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Dual Blade Scorpion asks, "What's your opinion on copper golems?" I've never encountered a copper golem, though copper golems sound cool. I'm a big golem fan in the first place, quite frankly. Oh, you know what I could do? Actually, that might be kind of fun. That I will do real quick. The recent Robin Goblin, no, the like one before the last Robin Goblin episode, there was an option to like try to tell a joke to get through the door, and I had people comment jokes, and if someone commented a joke that I thought was like really good, I would make the DC lower. I rolled and we made it, you know, evident by Monday's episode. But if I still have them written down, I can share with you some of the jokes that people submitted, because I basically put them onto a list and then roll. I do have them. Yes. I do have them. I rolled randomly to determine which joke I would use because they were all good. Look up copper golems. They are really easy to make. I will briefly. Let's check it out. This better not be a trap. Copper golem. Okay. So you're talking about the copper golem from Minecraft? Is it? Because that's the result I get. And like, seems okay. Seems like a little guy. I guess my official stance on copper golems, assuming that it was the Minecraft golem that you were. Yes, imagine having one in D&D. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty fun. So for all to see, these are the jokes that I did not use because I rolled randomly and picked one joke. There were some good ones in there. They're all pretty good actually. One commenter submitted the joke, "What's green and has wheels?" Grass. I lied about the wheels. I thought that was kind of fun. There was someone who went very deep, but also, it's reference. Their joke was, and a little bit of behind the scenes, this would have been a little difficult to do in the episode because the episode, Robin Goblin, I try to keep them the length of a short. YouTube only allows like a minute, and even then I try to keep it shorter than that. So this would have been difficult to do, but if I had rolled it, I would have made it work. One commenter submitted the joke, "A duck walks into a bar. He waddles up to the bartender and asks, 'Got any grapes?' The bartender responds, 'No, we don't have any grapes.' Hearing this, the duck hops down and waddles out. The next day, the duck comes in again and asks the bartender, 'Got any grapes?' The bartender responds, more forcefully this time, 'No, we don't have any grapes.' Again, having heard this, the duck turns around and waddles out. On the next day, the duck walks back into the bar. Before he can say anything, this time the bartender screams at him, 'We didn't have any grapes yesterday. We didn't have any grapes the day before. And I swear by the hells, if you ask for grapes one more time, I'll nail those web feet to my bar.' And the duck looks at the bartender before asking, 'Got any nails?' 'No, we don't have any nails.' 'Got any grapes?' That's funny. There was one commenter who, submitting their joke, went, 'What's a mother that is thin as air?' My mother. And then like a little crying emoji. One person's joke they submitted was, 'Why could the door and the archway never get married?' Because the door was full of himself, and the archway just felt empty. Good. Bonus points. Bonus points for being topical to the door. There were a few that were like that, including the one that I ended up picking. As opposed to this next one, which is just, I like throwing housewarming parties. And you pull out a lighter. But authorities just call it arson. I thought that was all right. There was one person who I thought picked a pretty good one, considering Robin is a thief, which is what Shadow Dark calls their rogues. Knowing how to pick locks has really opened a lot of doors for me. That's cool. That's suave. Robin can be suave. I think Robin might actually have a charisma score, actually. Like a positive charisma modifier. I'd have to look again. He might actually. I could even look right now. I'm not going to. But I could. There's another. Oh, that's the one. Nope, just said that one. There was one that was just, honey, stop looking for the perfect match. Use a lighter. It's pretty all right. It's pretty okay, I think. There was a classic among the comments, which was, when is a door not a door? When it's ajar. I think like the first place I heard that was like reading the Dark Tower books. So that was kind of fun. Then there's the one that I ended up rolling, which you can see in the actual episode that I put out Monday. It's on my channel right now. Then there was, did you hear the barbarian missing his left? And how they are? Don't worry, he's all right now. I misread it. Did you hear about the barbarian missing his left arm and leg? Don't worry, he's all right now. And the last two were one that's like, why do owls only hunt in pairs? Because they're in cahoots. That's pretty good. And then the last one, I remember, was one of the submissions I got on Instagram. That was about Paladin taking his wagon in to be inspected, and the problem was that the wagon keeps on veering off and hitting villagers, and the guy looks under the hood and says, oh, that's your problem. Your alignment is off. Mm-hmm. Though actually, there was one other joke about, what's the best thing to wear as a rogue, or why the rogues always dress in leather, because it's hide. So there's a good joke submissions in there. I ended up like counting. There's just enough that I couldn't roll a d12, so I ended up like rolling a d20 and just counting over again for a little behind the scenes. That's how I picked the joke. And then I rolled a d20 and added a modifier. It was against a DC of 12. There's no video of it, but Robin got a 16, so obviously we got through. Now we found our petrified friends, but we need to get out of there, which is something that somebody else called. I remember on Instagram, like when we first started going to the tower to get our petrified friends, one of my Instagram commenters asked, so do we have a way of unpetrifying them? And I was like, no, actually. And he was like, I see. And so now, only just now have we caught up, and it's like, oh yeah, we have them. We can carry them out, or we can do something. Though honestly, it looks like option number 2, because one option was start carrying your friends out, like your statue friends, start carrying them out. Option number 2 was look for another captive that might be able to help you. And option number 3, I believe option number 3 was look somewhere else in the tower for a possible cure. It looks like number 2 is going to win at this point. I need to actually do the counting, but it looks like 2 is going to win. And honestly, I should not be surprised. Both people love getting new party members in D&D, and I shouldn't be surprised by this at all. Like in my game shop game, there are multiple times where the party will be like, "Is there someone we could hire to like come with us?" And in the Robin Goblin stuff, I think just about every time that there's been an option to like make friends with or ally yourself with another dude or monster or something, they go for it. And I guess I can understand that. It is kind of fun. So I'm going to do an official count of the vote tonight. And if that wins, then spoilers, we're just going to have a selection of prisoners that might help you, but with a little bit of a twist that should make it more fun than just selecting, and also more dangerous, potentially. And so we will also see how that goes. I have talked about pretty much everything I want to talk about. I think this is a good place to leave the stream. So once again, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for being here, chatting, and I'll catch you next week, maybe. New Robin Goblin Wednesday. Cheers. Final send off.